Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Board YouTube channel. This is the NBA content division of the Hammer Betting Network, and I am back. My name is Jacob Gramegna. I'm here with my co-host Kirk Evans for the Thursday show here, where we go through the NBA week that was. We talk about the biggest stories around the league. We talk about trending topics. We give our opinions, and at the end of it all, we go to Kirk Evans here to get some best bets. And today we're focusing on the in-season tournament with those best bets, and we'll recap also some of the previous plays that have been given out on the show. But for starters, Evan, you've been a busy man on the network recently. You have today you're on the obviously this show, which you're on every week. Later today, you're on the Circles Off podcast for an in-studio episode, and tonight you are on the Forward Progress NFL watch party. So how's it been with all this content? Let the viewers know.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I've never really done any content prior. Now we're kind of just diving into it.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Circles Off episode. If you guys don't know Kirk Evans, he was on a previous Circles Off episode. That's the educational sports betting content division of the Hammer. That was a few weeks ago now. You can go back to check at Circles Off HQ, or the one that's coming out in an hour and a half at the time of the live recording here. So plenty of content from Kirk Evans that is on the way, and even the Forward Progress stream tonight. Those NFL watch parties are fun if that is your taste. But over here, it's all about the NBA and some of the biggest stories. Well, the biggest story remains James Harden, in my opinion. And the reason that remains the biggest story in the league is, of course, because the Clippers have not won a game since James Harden arrived to the team. Now, in fairness to James, they're 0-6 since he arrived, but he's only played in 5 of those games. So they're 0-5 when he actually suits up and does play. So we'll talk about this, but before we get started, want to remind everybody to smash the like button on today's stream to pump us up in that YouTube algorithm. It does really make a difference to the content, and also subscribe to keep up to date with all the content we have over here on the channel. After all, we do 5 weekday morning streams for best bets. We have this show as well, and on top of that, we have YouTube shorts, including the Monday, Friday big SGPs. But first of all, Evan, Kirk, we have the Clippers at 0-6. What's the biggest reason why they cannot piece this together post-trade?
I don't know if I would point to one specific reason. I think the fact that I've got this written down here, Harden's played over 50% of his minutes with Westbrook. I don't know if I would say that's the biggest reason that they're 0-6, 0-5, but it's, to me, pretty easily the easiest fix. Those are two guys pretty clearly who shouldn't be playing together. I think not that LeBron and Harden are particularly similar players, but it's pretty clear that Westbrook is a pretty cancerous offensive player. If he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he's not a great offensive player either way, but he's pretty much only good at this point of his career if he can have the ball, put pressure on the rim and find guys for passes. And him playing with Harden just kind of makes no sense. They've been terrible together. There's also been a lot of three-point shooting luck for Harden specifically. Like when Harden's been on, the three-point shooting has been insane for the other team and horrible for the Clippers. So I think there are a lot of reasons. Harden's also in pretty bad shape, and I think he even said that pretty recently. But he's always been a guy who can kind of get into shape mid-season. So I feel like I'm normally pretty pessimistic on this show, but all the topics we're talking about, I'm actually going to be a little optimistic. I faded the Clippers, I think, the first 3 games that Harden played for them. But at this point, I'm more optimistic on the Clippers than I would say general perception. I think they'll be fine.
So this optimism that you have here, by the way, today we're talking about the Clippers, we're talking about the other LA team, we're talking about Zach LaVine. But as far as the Clippers specifically are concerned, do you think they should, like Ty Lue said that he has no plan to bring Westbrook off the bench? They want to kind of keep status quo here. Do you think that's the approach that they actually are going to use, and that's what's going to help them get out of this funk here?
Yeah, I think Westbrook's going to come off the bench within the next 3-4 games would be my guess. It just really makes no sense. Powell fits better. Man fits better. Like Harden he played off the bench last year, and he was actually pretty good at it when he was playing for the Lakers. It was kind of a very similar problem. He couldn't play with LeBron because LeBron is better with the ball in his hands than Westbrook. And Westbrook without the ball in his hands just completely clogs up the offense. And he doesn't do enough otherwise to kind of justify being on the court. But, if you want to stagger, Harden comes off, Kawhi comes off, then you got Westbrook and PG playing together with the bench unit. Westbrook can play 23 minutes a game, have the ball in his hands a lot, have a much higher usage than he does now, but just don't play them, all four of them together. It just, like, there's not really any reason. And also, the nice thing about bringing Westbrook off the bench is Plumlee's injured. So you can play Westbrook in those 5-out lineups. He's kind of the only non-shooter on the court. Play him with another star. Make sure that star's not Harden. It can be Kawhi. It can be PG. And I think that will work versus what they're doing now, which is simply not working.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, any NFL fans there, and maybe you'll need to know this for your watch party tonight, even though they're not playing. The Atlanta Falcons, coach Arthur Smith was claiming on Desmond Ridder, the quarterback who started the season, when everybody was saying he's not good, he probably shouldn't be starting. Arthur Smith was basically like, "Oh, I watched more tape than anybody else. He's good. He's our best quarterback." And then a few weeks later, Taylor Heineke's starting. I think this is kind of the same thing that'll happen to Ty Lue. He's just sticking up for his guy in press conferences. Internally, he has to understand that this Westbrook thing really can continue. And if it does continue, you can't have Westbrook with a same slice of the pie in terms of field goal attempts as Paul George, as Kawhi Leonard, as James Harden. The only way, we talked about it, I think, either last week or 2 weeks ago, this would really work is if you're playing those 5-out lineups with Westbrook pressuring the rim and kicking out after the fact to guys like Kawhi, PG, Harden. But in those cases, well, first of all, Harden's got to take some more catch and shoot threes, which he's actually admitted. And second of all, if you're using Kawhi and PG as those catch and shoot guys outside, it's a bit of a waste. So yeah, the fit isn't really happening. I don't think I'm quite as optimistic as you are. However, a lot of clashing sort of personalities, but I don't know. Ty Lue's a good coach, so I have to give him a little bit of. I have to give Ty Lue a bit of optimism because I think he's too good of a coach to let this continue where it's just no flow on offense, no plays. It's basically just like, all right, my turn to play offense, and everybody else kind of watches.
For sure. And I think it is like kind of like a chicken and the egg situation where I'm optimistic based on what's happening. Like, I think Harden's being fine. His individual stats are fine. His usage rate is way down, which I think is actually a pretty good sign, even though, you know, he doesn't do so much without the ball. So he is going to have to generate, but like 20% usage for Harden, I think is totally fine. He's got 11 catch and shoot jumpers, 26 dribble jumpers, which sounds pretty bad, but that's better than typically in his career. I watched all his shots right before this podcast, all his shots as a Clippers. It looked fine. He only has 8 shots at the rim. He's smoked a couple of layups, so that's a worry. But again, he's not really in good shape, so it's not shocking. But really, the problem is, you know, if it keeps going bad, it can spiral really quickly, even if it's like the underlying numbers are fine. But I don't think Kawhi's thinking, oh, okay, we're 0-6, but the underlying numbers are fine, right? Kawhi's thinking, what is going on? We just traded for Harden, and we're playing terrible. So it could spiral pretty quickly. And already there's been, you know, Westbrook was on the bench angry. Kawhi didn't come back to the bench, all this stuff. So I'm not super optimistic to the point where I'm like, oh, the Clippers are going to be totally fine. But I think if they just kind of stagger Harden Westbrook a bit more, let it play their course. They've played some tough teams. They played Denver pretty tough.
Oh,
I think they'll be fine.
They played Memphis and lost. I don't know.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. They got smoked by Dallas as well, but like they lost to the Knicks. The Knicks have been good. I think they'll be fine. I'm not ready to say, you know, they're totally dead in the water. No one in the West has looked that good other than Denver. I think they'll be fine, but again, it could spiral quickly with the personalities on this team. So we'll see what happens.
That's my concern. So they're 3-7, by the way, the Clippers, after their 3-1 start. Look, I don't think they're going to be like outright missing the playoffs necessarily, but yeah, it's the way it's tough to say. It's tough to make like a big claim after 6 games. It's only 6 games. And like you said, all these things like gelling together, Harden not quite necessarily being at his full game fitness, but even still, it's tough for me to see them putting it together enough to really be a contender. And by the way, we didn't even mention Zubac has been absolutely horrible so far this season, which is another problem they need to look out for. But from one team that perhaps doesn't look like the contender we thought they were, we go to perhaps another team that maybe isn't quite looking like the contender we thought they'd be. Now, they're not as big of a hole, but the Los Angeles Lakers are 6-6, rather surprisingly. Here is one maybe where the underlying numbers don't quite support their record. Just simply looking at their defensive rating, offensive rating, they're 20th in both. 20th in both, yet they are 6-6. So the offense hasn't been particularly good. The defense hasn't been particularly good, but they're finding a lot of ways to grind out games. LeBron has looked great this season. AD hasn't looked as good as I thought AD would look. They lost by 15 to the Kings yesterday. Bit of an ugly one. The Lakers so far, what are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I feel like I'm also a little bit maybe more optimistic on the Lakers than consensus. There are clear real positives and clear real negatives. Number one positive, LeBron is whatever, 38, maybe he's 95, maybe he's a robot or an alien. He still looks unbelievable. He's the best player on this team so far this year, and I don't think it's been close, even though I think everyone coming into the year would have thought, Davis is going to be the guy. So, going into the season, to me, the biggest concern with the Lakers is what happens if LeBron finally, heavily declines, then they would be in trouble.
Don't worry.
But yeah, exactly. It doesn't seem like that's ever going to happen. But there was a lot of talk of this Lakers depth, and that's really been an issue. Reeves has been bad. Gabe Vincent's been terrible. They need Vando back. Christian Wood's been really bad. Jackson Hayes is really bad. So, there's, team talk about depth, now they're starting Cam Reddish, So that's without a doubt a problem. But LeBron being so good, and they're actually first in rim finishing right now on offense. They're 25th in mid-range jumpers, 23rd in three-point jumpers. I think that'll turn a little bit, but the thing that'll turn even more is they're 24th in three-point percentage against, and they're 22nd in long mid-range jumpers against. I feel like that's mostly luck. The defense is 20th right now, I think you said. This defense just needs to be a top 10 defense for them to do anything serious. I think Vando will help. I think that he just got some positive injury news. He'll be back soon enough. So I think they'll be fine, but certainly have downgraded them since the start of the season.
I was very high on the Lakers coming to the season, which is kind of why I see them as a bit of a disappointment here. Maybe some other people weren't quite as high as me on this Lakers team. I was a fan of the depth. Reeves obviously was a huge player for me for this team. He's not been the huge player for them. Like you said, Cam Reddish is starting. The Lakers the purple and gold just attracts enough pieces that if somebody isn't quite working out, they have another one deep down in the roster that's actually got somewhat potential. That might be Cam Reddish for a little bit. But yeah, Anthony Davis, just straight up, Anthony Davis has to be better for this team to compete. As much as people were making it about AD, I never thought this team could be successful if AD was outperforming LeBron, because if LeBron's getting outperformed by AD, then LeBron is not playing well enough for this team to do well. So yeah, AD has to step up. Defensively needs to step up. Yesterday against the Kings, he struggled. Sabonis is really good, I get it, but he struggled immensely with that Sabonis matchup. Sabonis, oh my God, look at the numbers. Sabonis absolutely devoured AD yesterday. So that definitely has to be an area of improvement specifically for the Lakers. But do you think that they're considering right now any moves they can make to try and strengthen this team, or do you think they're trying to stay on course as well, like the Clippers?
For sure. Well, first I'll talk on AD. A bit of a weird player, AD. I feel like for a top 20 player in the league, he's one of the least consistent guys in the league. Sometimes he goes through stretches where he looks like a top 5 player. Last year in the playoffs, you watch him, he's by far the most impactful defensive player in the playoffs, but he's really never been the most impactful defensive player in the regular season for more than, 20 game stretches. I'm not exactly sure why that is. It could be injury related. He's a guy who really gets injured super often. He could be dealing with something. But again, you look at the defensive personnel on this team, especially if they're starting LeBron at the 3 and Vando at the 4, that just should be a really good defensive team. So I think they still should be a top 10 D. And if you're first in rim finishing, decent EFG, they should be good enough, to be around average on offense. And then that's kind of what they were expected to be at the start of the season. I think they were 48.5 wins. Over under, 10th on offense, 10th on D, 15th on offense is right around there. So I think they'll be fine. But yeah, AD needs to turn it around, and they really need to get Reeves going. Reeves was 99th percentile in points per shot attempt last year, dropped to 64th percentile this year. His turnovers have been really bad. So yeah, Reeves needs to figure it out for sure. You said any trade pieces. I think it's still pretty early. I guess we have seen some massive trades, like the Harden trade, but I assume they'll think about LaVine. But is there anyone I'm missing other than LaVine who really could be a trade target early? OG maybe?
I mean, the Lakers,
they're not trading for OG.
The Lakers really don't have, to be honest, the Lakers can't trade it, make a trade. Just with the guys that are locked in for like the extension thing and the finances that go to these players, they actually can't make a trade.
Yeah, well, Reeves, I think, could be traded after December 15th, and then maybe could be the key of a trade, but
I wouldn't. I'm
exactly.
I'm a big fan of Reeves.
Yeah,
I think that's a good.
I agree, and you're trading him at the lowest point of his value, so. I think I'm with you. I think this is probably the team. They figured it out last year. I don't know. I think.
Well, they figured out.
We're still really early in the season.
Trade.
Yeah, but they still have those guys, Yeah. So, I think they'll be fine. We're still very early in the NBA season.
They
look at the standings.
2-10. I think they were 2-10 last year at this point. So 6-6.
They're 6-6. They're fine. They're fine. The real issue is that LeBron's missed one game and AD's missed one game. Those guys are going to miss time. And coming into the season, I think the idea was, we can lose LeBron for stretches of games. We can rest them and we'll be good. And that just has not been the case. They are terrible with LeBron off the floor.
Right. Comment Fries here saying D'Angelo Russell also needs to step up. I don't know. For me, I never expected Russell to be much at all, regardless.
Yeah. His shooting's been really bad. He needs to start hitting shots, but he will. He's actually been super consistent with what he is throughout his career. I think he'll be fine.
All right. I mean, I'm not a big D'Angelo Russell fan, so I'm not holding out a ton of hope there. But he's been better than I expected him to be this season. I will.
Yeah, he just needs to be a good 3-point shooter. I don't think he's going to turn into a dynamic defensive player, but. He's shooting, I guess he's up to 38% from three right now, but has been 40% the last couple of years. He's fine. He kind of is what he is.
Follow-up is that he's playing so many minutes. Gabe Vincent is shooting 7% from three this season.
Yeah, exactly. And Reeves is struggling.
Yeah, so that's why he has to play. Let me see what Gabe Vincent is after that Kings game. Okay, he's shooting, 7% from three on 3.5 attempts per game. That's not very good.
Yeah.
But only 12 games, as I said. Comment from Phoenix saying that you need to put AD with a pick and roll ball handler that can actually stretch defenses. Yeah, I mean, kind of. You can see that being the case with AD. Maybe he hasn't quite gotten that here, but we saw, after seeing AD in the playoffs last year, I was ready to anoint him like the best defender in the NBA, and I actually have a DPOI bet on him. That's not looking phenomenal this early stage of the season. That can all change, of course, over the course of it, but. I think, again, this team needs AD to be successful.
Yeah, I think I agree with that point in terms of AD's not going to be the most hyper-efficient player in the NBA on this Lakers team, because this Lakers team, they're being a bottom 20 3-point shooting team every year. LeBron's been there and every year Davis has been there. So I agree. Davis probably ideally would be kind of close to that, I don't want to say quite that Utah Gobert team, but yeah, you want more spacing around him. You want a good pick and roll partner. For sure, that would unlock his offense. But like you said, they don't have that much shooting around Davis, but they have a lot of defense around him. They've got a lot of size. There's just no reason they're the 20th defensive team in the league.
Right. Question from Eric. Is Austin Reeves serious or unserious?
Austin Reeves is way closer to serious than unserious. He didn't quite make the list. Last year, maybe serious. This year, he's struggling a little bit, so he didn't quite make the list, but way closer to serious than unserious.
Rank his seriousness out of 10. 10 being the most serious player of all time, unserious. 1 being the most unserious.
So 10 being Drew Holiday, and one being Jordan Poole.
And Kyle Kuzma.
He's like a 7-3.
Okay. Okay, pretty
70,
serious.
clearly serious. Yeah, like watch Austin Reeves. He takes the right shots. The thing is, he gets cooked on D. That definitely downs your serious rating. But he's locked in. It's not like he's not trying on D. He doesn't take dumb shots. He makes the right play. Never would be a guy who like comes off the bench and then like makes a scene. He's just serious for sure, but not quite on the All NBA serious team.
I think you're selling him short. I think he's a very serious player for all the reasons you mentioned. He's always
7-3, a 7-3. That's high. A 7-3 is high.
I push high sevens for Reeves. Anyways, let's move on. We talked about potential trades for the Lakers. One of those guys, people speculate at anytime a guy's available. The two teams that are going to be mentioned. Number one, it's the Lakers. Number two, it's the Raptors. The Lakers literally can't do this trade, even if they wanted to. The Raptors, maybe we can discuss as well if they're involved at all. But Zach LaVine is on the trade block. The Bulls have not started well. So what do you think are the best landing spots for Zach LaVine in considerations of LaVine's fit with that team and the team's fit for LaVine in the sense like this is going to make sense to do the trade?
Please, God, Zach LaVine do not get traded to the Raptors. This talking about me being an optimist. I'm about to go in on optimistic Kirk right here. I think Zach LaVine is awesome, and maybe the most underrated player in the whole NBA. But why would the Raptors trade for him? He's just going from the Bulls to another Bulls. Raptors do not trade for him. I desperately want to see Zach LaVine on the Philadelphia 76ers. That's obviously the team that makes sense. They would be awesome with him. It would really elevate them. I sent a text to a guy who I talk a lot of basketball with today. Who are you taking, Bucks or Sixers with LaVine? And I think it's legitimately a good question. But before we get into any of it, let's talk Zach LaVine. I don't really get why the narrative is so negative around Zach LaVine. So here's his last 3 years usage: 97th percentile in usage, 96th percentile in usage, 94th percentile in usage. This isn't included this year. Those 3 years, 94th percentile in points per shot attempt, 85th percentile in points per shot attempt, 80th percentile in points per shot attempt. So massive usage, hyper efficient, and he's taking a terrible shot diet. He takes a ton of long twos. This year, 125 jump shots, only 19 have been unguarded, and only 32 out of 125 are catch and shoots. You put this guy on the Sixers, they're telling him no more long twos, just bomb 10 threes a game, and when they close out on you, get to the rim. And then he could be one of the most efficient scorers in the league. I know he's bad defensively, but he's good size, good athleticism. I think he'd be fine as a playoff defender. I don't think he would get brought up, attacked every time, especially with Joel behind him. I think that's actually a pretty good pairing because I don't think LaVine's a switch guy. Get this man on the Sixers. Get this man on the Sixers.
I'll tell you why I'm not a big Zach LaVine fan. First and foremost, the defense comes into play for me. You really need to have a specific team that can handle that. Maxi's improving as a defender, but LaVine and him together, I think, could bring a bit of problems there. Nick Nurse as well. I'm not sure Zach LaVine is the ideal player for a Nick Nurse defense. But another reason that I question Zach LaVine, his consistency is very annoying. He's got such big fluctuations with output. You could get just a game where just for some reason there's no motivation from Zach LaVine. He goes 10 points. Then you have, earlier in the season, he had a 50-point game early in the season, I think. So you just have such severe fluctuations with Zach LaVine that really frustrate me. The Sixers, I like the fit enough, as much as I said, with Nick Nurse, that I like it looking at it as well. But I think the Sixers will prioritize cap space at the end of the season. I think they know they're close. They're really close to this team. But I think if they're patient enough, they can really, really get to another level if they're patient for next season. Tobias Harris's contract comes off the books. That's 40 million. Marcus Morris, 17 million. Nick Batum, 12 million. Robert Covington, 12 million. Melton, 8 million. And then a few other guys as well. Like all of that comes off the books next year. Guys like OG Anunoby are free agents. I think they're going to throw.
Is OG Anunoby better than Zach LaVine?
No, but I think that value perspective for a playoff team, you could certainly make the case.
I just don't. I think LaVine is a super additive offensive player. Like he is a player that you can fit with essentially any real superstar. Like I think right now is pretty much the worst Zach LaVine situation. They don't have shooting around him, but they have another guy who's super on ball, but who doesn't really create double teams or space for Zach LaVine. Like Zach LaVine with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, that is just going to create. We've never seen Zach LaVine in a situation like that, and he's already a hyper efficient offensive player. So you put him on a team that's, he's the third option. They could legitimately be a top 5 offense in the league pretty easily. And I know the defense is a concern, and also the injuries are a concern for sure. He's had a lot of knee issues, but it seems like he's fine. Yeah, I think his knees are mush just came up on my screen. Yeah, he's certainly had knee issues, but even last year I kept thinking, oh, LaVine's got these knee issues. He was amazing last year as an offensive player. Look, the offense has been bad in Chicago, but they've got the least creative offensive coach in the league. They just fire mid-range shots. Yeah. I think the players who are the most undervalued in the league are guys who you can shape their shot profile to make it way more efficient while they're already efficient players. Like I think people look at Zach LaVine, oh, he fires mid-rangers, oh, he's maybe a little on the more unserious side. But I think you could get him. I don't think there's really any evidence that Zach LaVine wouldn't play a more efficient style if he was in the right environment. So I think he's an awesome trade target. I don't really see why Philly would wait. Like, sure, maybe they could get something better in the offseason, but also super possible they miss and don't get anything better. And also, if you don't get LaVine, if you wait till the offseason, you kind of throw away this season. They just don't have enough talent to really compete. So,
well,
I want the Sixers.
I'm not saying ignore this season. I'm saying that I wouldn't go for LaVine.
But I think they need with the good, like with Denver and Boston, you need to take a shot. Like if they got Gary Trent, like they're still not competitive.
No, I think that I actually do believe that this team is best. So take this current team minus Tobias Harris plus OG is better than plus Zach LaVine. I firmly believe that. They're already one of the best offenses in the NBA. Now you just completely eliminate any defensive issues that Maxey can possess. You eliminate the opposition's best player, whether it's a forward, a guard by OG, or if it's a big, like even OG does a job there, or it's Joel Embiid. Like that team is unbelievable to me if it's OG instead of LaVine.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think OG, like selling the farm for OG makes sense for a team that has a center like Joel. I think because they would essentially never play like 5-out switching, and I think that's a really big piece of what OG does. I think he would be an awesome fit on like Memphis, where you can put Jaren at center and then have OG as kind of your secondary big who can also essentially switch onto any player. But OG isn't quite as good defensively when he's playing smaller guards. I think he's awesome, if you play like Kawhi, LeBron, those type of guys. But I think there is something to be said of like, you don't want to sell the farm for OG if you're not really going to be a switching team and going to be a super drop heavy defensive scheme.
Interesting. Tobias Harris over LaVine. No, I don't know if I said this by accident. I don't rate Tobias Harris. I rate Tobias Harris very, very low. And we're talking about seriousness.
He's playing well. He's playing well.
I will. You know what? I'll give him credit. He really does embrace. He's better than the role that they use him. He knows that, and he just plays it. I think that they use in that role for a reason because like there's not much more he can give. And I think he's a guy that thrives more as like a primary option on a lower scale team, which makes him maybe a bit more unserious.
Well, shout out Tobias Harris though. He was a super high usage player, and they kind of completely slashed his usage in Philly. And, I agree with Philly doing that.
Yeah.
I agree with Philly doing that. And I don't think it's a great role for him. And I think they've been trying to get rid of him, but never really complained, taking a way smaller role on a massive contract.
Yeah. I'll credit Tobias Harris for that. He's making $40 million to stand in the corner and just shoot threes, basically.
Must be nice. So, Must be nice.
Yeah, I mean, it must be nice, but he doesn't like it. He's admitted to that. But
for sure.
At the end of the season, he's free to go wherever he wants, to do whatever he wants. We might see a surge of scoring from him next season, however, maybe inefficient. Okay, you talk about your fit, 76ers. I'll give mine before we move on to the bets for Zach LaVine. I love the OKC Thunder as the opportunity to really push this team forward. They have the defense everywhere to hide it. Jalen Williams is a good defender. Lou Dort's an amazing defender. Chet's an amazing defender. Shea is a fine defender. He's a positive defender. You can hide LaVine's deficiencies defensively. He fits way better than Josh Giddey. You actually get floor spacing for Shea as his as the secondary guard there. Shea is good enough to be the primary guy. LaVine is your secondary guy there. Good piece all around, good depth. And the assets they could give would barely scrape the surface of assets that OKC has for the future as well, to continue to build for the future. Financially, they can afford it. I love the fit with OKC. Again, I question if this is what they consider the big move that they make, but I really like this fit. And I think that this makes them in a few years, this makes them a real contender. What do you think about OKC?
Yeah, I think the fit makes sense. Like OKC also is kind of a team that they're like, I think by far number one in the league in drives and just don't really have shooters to kick it out. So LaVine, to me, fit wise, especially offensively, would make a lot of sense here. He could just bomb, 12 threes per 36, hit 40% of them, get a lot of open catch and shoots. But I don't know. I just think OKC has higher aspirations, Shea's going to be on a max. Chet's going to get a max. Jalen Williams is going to get a max. I think they need to trade Giddey at some point. But
Giddey would be outgoing probably in this trade.
For sure. But I just don't think you can get LaVine and then another player. Like LaVine kind of would be the guy they're going after. And he's a little old, a little injury prone. If I'm OKC, I'm saying, we're kind of dealing with we're easily way ahead of schedule. We can kind of pick and choose that superstar we want. And I'd just rather a younger guy maybe a little bit less injury prone. So I think I would just wait if I'm OKC. They could literally trade for any player who becomes available in the whole league. And I still am a bit lower on OKC. I don't think they're really a contender yet. And then, in 2 years, when Chet's kind of hitting his prime, maybe add a little size, where's LaVine's knee going to be then? So I would probably wait. I like the fit on the court, but if I'm OKC, I'm just waiting it out.
Final thing on LaVine, how much does his contract scare you? So this year he's $40 million. Next year it's 43. Year after 46. 31-year-old Zach LaVine has a $49 million player option. I imagine he's going to take that. At this point, I would be shocked. If, right now, predicting, I'd be very shocked if Zach LaVine did not take that player option. So that's a lot of money for 4 years. That's $178, $180 million next 4 years. Does that concern you if you're a team trading for him?
If I'm OKC, it concerns me. If I'm Philly, I'm less concerned. Right now, Philly's really dealing in the world of Joel could leave, and if Joel leaves, you're starting from ground zero. You got to totally start again. So, if you're paying extra on the back half to be a legit contender, I don't hate it. I don't think it's going to be great, but also new TV deal coming in. So the deals are all going to get crazy. I think it'll probably be fine. It won't be great, but if he can help you, if he can go to a team and help them legitimately contend, then it's fine. But like the Raptors, yes, I would be very concerned with that contract if I was the Raptors trading for Zach LaVine. But if I'm the Sixers, much less concerned.
I said one last thing, but now it's one last thing. How many picks? How many picks is Zach LaVine? I think he's worth.
Well, that's also.
I think he's worth the 2 picks the Sixers got from the Clippers. That's sort of return plus players to get up to $40 million. That's where I think LaVine is at.
Well, that's what I kind of like about Levine too, is I think his value around the league is pretty low. So you're not kind of trading those, 4 unprotected, 2 pick swaps to get him. Yeah, I think probably 2 first and an unprotected swap would be like
Yeah.
pretty close to getting you there for Chicago.
Or one unprotected, like really valuable first round pick. Like I think that's where.
Yeah, exactly. Like any team in the league would be desperate for a 2027 Philly unprotected. Like if you're getting Levine when he's on this contract, knee problems, and Joel, if it doesn't work out, easily could leave. Yeah, fine, they'll have Maxey, but like if Joel leaves, this team could be terrible. So yeah. I think there's a weird thing in the NBA of if your team has potential of being really bad in the future, your picks become super valuable. So maybe you shouldn't be trading them. But I think an unprotected 2027, 2028 Sixers pick would be super valuable for the Bulls. So yeah, I think they could get them without, selling the farm. So I'm all in on that.
I agree.
Even though it would probably be bad for me in terms of betting wise. I've got a lot of Bucks futures, just championship futures. I'm still all in. I still want it.
Right. Raptors, by the way, can't trade any pick up until the 2028 first. So that'd be the pick that would go to the Bulls. Let's
not put it in the air. Let's not put it in there. Raptors do not trade for Zach LaVine.
That can be a very valuable pick, as easy as it could be like a not so valuable pick. I don't expect it to be like a bottom 5 in the first round, but that pick could reasonably be a top 10 pick. So yeah, let's avoid that. Raptors avoid this one at all costs. I self plug. I go in depth on why it's a bad idea for the Raptors on my own YouTube channel, which you see under my name, Amateur Sports, if you want more on Zach LaVine and the Raptors. But let's talk about your bets. You wanted to make some in-season tournament bets. You've already made some so far on the show. You have the Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves to win the division, their group C, I believe it is. And, well, I don't know. I think your bigger position is on the Timberwolves since you went with that next. You got a pretty lovely comeback in the brawl game as the Timberwolves mounted a fourth quarter comeback and won that game. That must have been great for your positions, I imagine. You're also on OKC not to make the playoffs and Jokic MVP, but the Minnesota one, that's looking good. How you feeling about that?
30-1. I like it a lot. Hopefully they win the group. We just need a Sacramento loss. And then we'll be okay. Like Wolves beat Sacramento, I think it's totally locked up. And if Golden State beats Sacramento, we're in really good shape. But yeah, I think what do we get? Plus 450 on it. Now it's minus 220. Yeah. Warriors are definitely in a bit of trouble, but that bet's also not totally dead.
Yep.
Yeah, we're just really fading the Kings here. We really don't want the Kings to win this group. But yeah, I think I gave out 30-1. Wolves to win the tournament's like 10-1 now. So I'm pretty happy about that.
That win just vaulted them. That win against the Warriors.
Exactly. And also, the Wolves are really good. They are just a really good team, and they're a team, Pat Beverly was bawling his eyes out after they won the plan.
Yeah.
This is not a team that is going to take the in-season tournament lightly.
That's what I was saying last week. This is the one team. This is the one team I would bet on to be all in on the in-season tournament. All right. With that said, you want to go with a little bit more action on the in-season tournament. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, so I've got two. One's a group winner, and then one's a in-season tournament to win. So I'll take it up to minus 240. I honestly don't even know if it's that bad of a price anywhere. Nuggets to win their group. This price just really, I've been trying to look at the permutations of it and understand why they're only getting priced at minus 220. The math just does not add up. They're 2-0. They've beaten the Mavs and the Clippers, so the two best teams in the group. The only team that doesn't have a loss is Houston, whose the odds are out for tomorrow, going to be 6-point dogs in LA tomorrow. The Nuggets are going to be, I think, already on the board, 4-point favorites in New Orleans tomorrow. So if Nuggets win, Houston loses, the bet's pretty much wrapped up. But even if Nuggets lose and Houston wins, the bet's still a favorite to win because Denver will get Houston and unless Jokic isn't healthy, be around. I think we already have a price for that game as well earlier this season. They were 5-point favorites on the road. So there's just pretty much no reason for this bet. This bet should be around minus 400, and we're getting minus 220. I'm sorry to give out a minus 220, but there's just a ton of value on it. So yeah, I think it's like minus 190 at DraftKings, or was yesterday.
It is right now.
Minus 190. They're going to be better than minus 200 in either of those games, and Houston's going to be plus 200 against the Clippers, and they still need to play the Mavs. Houston's only gotten a win over the Pels, who are the worst team in the group, and the Nuggets have gotten wins over the two best teams in the group. So give me the Nuggets. There's just, there's going to have to be a string of a lot of really bad losses and wins for them to not win this group. So give me the Nuggets up to minus 240 is easily good for them to win their group.
Yeah.
Group B, I think it is.
So up to 240, except right now at DraftKings, well, it's moved because you gave it out. But right now, it's minus 200. Okay, now it's minus 210. Anyways, yeah, if you're watching live.
Yeah, Nuggets are minus 200 to beat New Orleans tomorrow. And even if we get worst case scenario tomorrow of a Nuggets loss and a Houston win, which based on my rough calculations in my head is like around a 12.5% chance, I still think we're favored to win the group, even if that happens. And then if either one goes the right way, we're in really good shape.
Understood. So minus 190 was that one for the Nuggets to win West Group B. That's getting blasted at DraftKings. BetMGM has it minus 200 still. So if you want to get minus 200, you can still go and do that there, but up to 240 is good. Anything else on the in-season tournament that you're looking at?
Buckle up, because we're giving out a big juicy underdog.
Alright.
The Knicks to win the in-season tournament. So I've given out my West pick. I think I'll be done giving out to win. No, I take that back. I won't be done. I love betting this tournament. It's amazing. It's new. It's hard to price. You can look at the odds and get really good value. Knicks to win. I think there's a bunch of 60 to 1s. I think it was 66 at FanDuel yesterday.
65. Oh, sorry.
65.
65. So, yeah, it's 66.
Plus 6,500. Exactly. Beautiful. So,
yeah, go ahead.
The Knicks, they have a 5-point loss to the Bucks. That's all that's happened in the in-season tournament so far. They tomorrow are going to be, I think this is on the board right now. They're going to be 7-point favorites again, or 6.5 right now on the board versus Washington. They only lost by 5 to the Bucks. So they, the point differential, not bad at all. They get a Charlotte matchup and then a road Washington matchup. Both are going to be dramatic favorites there. And then they get home to the Heat. Going to be big favorites there. Maybe not big favorites, but right now I'd make them around 4.5-point favorites, 5-point favorites at home to the Heat. They have a path to win the group if they win all 3 of those games. And then they have a really good path for the wild card because the Philly Cavs group is pretty tough, and New York has 2 like cupcake matchups and a Heat matchup, which they'll be favored in. So 3 clear favorites. If they're 3-1, have a good point differential, really good chance of making the tournament. And then it's 1-game elimination. So at 66 to 1 with a decent shot and just their absolute toughest matchup being a small loss, it just pretty easily could see them getting their way in the tournament. They've been really good. I think I'm above market on the Knicks as well. So, don't sell your house and put everything on it, but I think we'll get good value and the odds will come way down if we win tomorrow against Washington.
So very interesting market assessment of the Knicks right now. I don't imagine you'll play this down to the 4,500 or the 4,000 on DraftKings and Bet365 respectfully. But this 6,500 is available on FanDuel. 6,600
anything like
available.
55 to 1 better. I would have value on it. Just a really good schedule to get themselves in, really getting priced out of it because they're 0-1. But, 0-1 versus the Bucks isn't the worst situation to be in. And we might have Giannis out tomorrow, which would certainly help the equity.
Yeah, I'm looking at somebody.
Giannis could be out tomorrow with that calf injury.
Eric asked about the in-season tournament schedule. The championship game is December 9th. So if the Knicks were to win this tournament, they would win it on Saturday, December 9th. Obviously, if they get eliminated in the earlier stages, then they will not be involved at that point. But the latest, the final is the 9th. So we'll say grade on the 9th.
It's a nice tournament to bet too, because it closes in 3 weeks. You're not locking up your money for the rest of the season.
Right. And what I was mentioning earlier is just like the market is so vastly different on this team. So perhaps opportunity to get the number while you can, as we saw with that Nuggets one that just got blasted live while we were on here. All right. 46 minutes. Any other teams that you want to discuss?
I think we're good. Tomorrow's really going to be a massive in-season tournament day. Just a ton of games, a lot of interesting ones. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting day for sure.
Group stage grading, by the way, would be November 28th. That is the last batch of games. However, teams could be done earlier than that. The games are on the 24th and the 28th. So it could be either of those ones. I don't know specifically for the teams that we bet right now, but before the end of November would be the group stage grading. So yeah, you're not locking up money for a very long time with these ones at all, which is a good thing. You want to have that liquidity to be able to hit more of the lines that we give out on this channel, because we're betting every single weekday on this channel and twice on Thursdays. Every weekday morning, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, myself and Pips go live for pick and roll. By the way, on a nice little run here. I know the whole short-term sample sizes and all that, but a 15-2 run, it's pretty impressive. 15-2 just means 15-3 in last 18, but it doesn't, because it's actually 16-3 if you add on the other day prior to that. So it's been an incredible run on the channel. We're looking to keep that going tonight with our bet we have tonight, and also we're looking to keep that going tomorrow with some more NBA action in play. So to keep up to date with everything on the channel, subscribe to the Board HQ. Follow on your favorite podcast platform. And before you go, smash that like button if you are tailing any of the bets. If you've been cashing with any of the bets as well on the rest of the channel, we want to try to get to 50 likes on today's stream. And take a second in audio form to rate and review 5 stars. You can catch more from Kirk Evans, a lot more, in fact, from Kirk Evans on the network. The educational content division, we have the Circles Off HQ channel, where you are in studio with Rob Pizzola. That's at 4 p.m. What sort of things do you discuss in that podcast, by the way?
A lot of analytics talk, sports analytics, hockey analytics, basketball analytics, defensive metrics, all that type of fun stuff.
And I mean, hey, you're watching this, you're a fan of Kirk Evans, and you must be a fan of analytics as well. Later today as well, 8 p.m. Eastern time, well, let's say 8:15 p.m. Eastern time is when you'll be on for the first quarter of the Forward Progress NFL watch party. It's actually a good watch party, a good game. The watch parties are always good, but it's a good game as well today between the Ravens and Bengals. You'll be on in the first quarter, showing your NFL knowledge off. Who's your unofficial pick to win tonight's Thursday night football game?
I think I have a little money on the Bengals, so go Bengals.
Go Bengals. That is Kirk Evans. My name is Jacob Gramegna. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. We'll be back next Thursday together, but I'll be back tomorrow morning for more on the Board HQ YouTube channel. We'll see you then.